to wait a minute for the other guys to join. And we'll start. Okay, so let's start the community call. So thanks a lot for joining in this KubeVela community meeting. There is some agenda for today, and I'm excited also to see that there are also some features and things to be commented and explored. So let's go with the agenda. First of all, I would like to provide a bit of a project update, given also like everything that has been talked these months regarding the project, the continuity, maintainability, and things like that. So in that aspect, basically, we've been maintaining some meetings among the maintainers. The only thing that is happening is that just by coincidence, I will say, some of the maintainers are just in the process of changing jobs or are just joining new companies. So as you may expect, there is some slight news, an update process when you join a new company. So that's why some of the people that was before a lot more involved seems to not be, but under the hood, on the other side of the project, they are there already. So we are working on that. So I think in terms of the project, we need to take a look into what will be like the short term, next 2 months, let's say, and what will happen after that. As I say, I will say that most of the maintainers will come back in a couple of months as they stabilize their situation in the new jobs and things like that. So for the short-term focus, what we've been talking is basically we need to work on some of the bugs and issues that have been raising in the last months. Some of them has not been answered or are just pending confirmation whether the bug still happens or not. So we are going to work on that to ensure that the project can continue working as expected. You can have some confidence that KubeVela is still being used in production environments today. So there is no change in that sense in the project of, we want to maintain it. We believe that it is a project that has a lot of future. So there will be a lot of people involved. What I will say is that we welcome everyone that has ideas, that raises issues, that communicates back, and even that can be a contribution to the project, because at the end of the day, we need feedback from people using it and to discover new use cases. So thanks everyone for raising also issues. And if you want to get more involved into the project, just talk to us directly, and we can also help you navigate like how to become more involved, for example. As part also of this chain in the maintainers' lives, we are also working in becoming more specialized in some areas that you may not be that familiar. Like, for example, myself, I'm not that familiar with the Q engine under the hood. So I will spend some time getting some expertise in that area, probably. But just know that we are still here and we are still maintaining the project. So as I said, in summary, you can expect bug fixes, issues, and things like that being addressed in the next couple of months while we build again force to tackle basically new features. And yeah, we are also trying to work more closely also with the Chinese community. Some of the maintainers are not here today just because it's a new year for those of you that are celebrating the Chinese New Year. So Happy New Year for you. Yeah, I think that apart from this project update and short-term roadmap, I think we can go into some of the features that has been added to the community call, basically. I don't know if anyone has questions or anything before we jump into that.
Just Oana had some suggestions. I think she raised it the Slack channel. If after this, Oana, you want to speak about it, up to you. Or you want to, pick anybody's brain and bring it up next community. It's up to you.
Yeah, I can bring up. I have two recommendations based on our use cases. Happy to jump straight in if you like.
Daniel,
Okay, cool.
that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Go ahead.
Paul?
Paul is also, yeah.
Oh yeah, I didn't mind waiting, but also I guess if you're going to go on to features and things, yeah, I was only going to say, well, thanks for your help, Daniel, and the others who are still working on this. If we are in a world where we have less maintainers, even if temporarily, I value myself, and it's only one of me, but I value the kind of application rollout, creating the first-class Kubernetes objects from the OAM definition. For me, I personally have to use Azure DevOps because that's our pipeline, and so I wonder whether things like workflow are required in the product, whereas I see the big value as the OEM rollout. I can immediately hear people disagreeing, but what I'm saying is, as we have less maintainers, do we need to tighten the focus on the features we're adding? I guess that's the summary.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. It's something that has been risen, as I said, on the maintainer meeting. I think we need to find a balance between there are some issues that are, let's say, bugs and things that are not working as expected. So we need to work on fixing that.
Sure.
Regarding the new features, I think there is like a tactical approach of looking at features as something that can have like direct value into like for a lot of use cases. And at the same time, there are a lot of features that are quite nice and will work. I mean, they will provide benefits, but are just only for a couple of use cases. So while we are in this shortage, let's say, of maintainers, I will say that we can continue working on defining that, just because when we have the power to tackle them, they will be better defined. So I think we need to consider both of these things. Like some of the features will be prioritized probably just because of the short/practicality, while others may take some time, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't make for the project, I will say.
And just to add, it might also be a different flavor for each person, right? Maybe workflow is important for certain companies, and maybe they would be then providing more input and community PRs, etc., into that. So that way we can make sure that we are growing in the same direction while our core focus is on maximum usage.
Oh yeah, no, I mean I agree, and I accept it's only my position, but the thing is, things like workflow and pipelining and pipelines, there's a lot of solutions out there, right? Pipelines, Jenkins, whatever. So do we spend effort on that in KubeVela when there's other solutions, or do we stay with the the USP of KubeVela? But yeah, it's good discussion, and it's not to be decided today, but it's just worth raising.
I think that's where it will automatically gravitate towards, because if there are very less people using a certain feature, obviously that will be the one that will be getting less love in a way, and we will see that evolve differently, where we can give alternatives, etc.
Yeah, I agree. The only thing is like at the same time, if something is already, let's say, on KubeVela, we should also try to maintain it. There will be a point, as in every product, where something gets deprecated, and if people are no longer using it, with time we will. I mean, at some point, it may not be longer supported by the project. I particularly have seen some use cases for people where the workflow was adding a lot of value for them. So, but at the same time, it's sometimes difficult to see like if that's just because just by chance you meet people that have this particular use case, or if it is something that the community as a whole is interested into it. So I think it's something we need to discover, and we need to continue working on that aspect of the KubeVela as a project. Okay, so let's jump into the different features that are part of the agenda for today. We can talk about them and probably also get some insights into them. First one is, well, let me paste that into the chat. It will be more accessible for everyone. Oh, it's copying just the text. Okay, let's.
Yeah, you just heard from me. How about we skip to 2-3 and I'll go last? You've already heard my voice.
Let's start in order. It's not an issue. So the huge one is 3435, as Paul said, which is about being able to version basically the components, for example, and being able to define which version you want to use from a specific component definition, right? Is that a correct summary?
Yes. So being able to specify it when you consume it, but also being able to specify the version in your definition, the two sides of it, because at the moment it just gets auto incremented. And with the sort of additional requirement to, when you have kind of break-in changes, not to have to call it, my trait -v2 as a way of separating it. Just have it all integrated. And as described there in 6435, and some good suggestions today as well about, sorry, I don't know how to say your name, Juana, if you want to introduce it. But yeah, good ideas about cluster configuration, just not sure how that pans out in the auto update world where, or not auto upgrading, sorry, not update, not auto upgrading. If your definition then is different to what's deployed, it's kind of a little bit unclear, but I don't dislike the suggestion. I'm just not sure how to solve that one. I don't know if anybody's seen, but that was on some comments we've been pinging today.
I have particularly have not seen the last comment. I was reading it now about this particular multi-cluster scenario. So
yeah, and that's a really good point as well. Yeah, I hadn't considered it.
So I think from what I've seen, well, first of all, Thog has also said that she's going to take care also of trying to move these through this LFX internship thing. So there will be some movement on that. She also has some experience in working on that part of the rendering of the application. For me, I think that we need to work a little bit into how those entities will be created in Kubernetes. Namely, like, how are we going to name different, for example, component versions? Because we don't want them, I mean, either we have a complex object that supports versions internally, or we will need to find some naming, such as the new version doesn't overwrite the other version just because of the name in Kubernetes. So I think this is also something that, I mean, is in the world, needs to be defined. But I am worried, let's say, in general terms, on how we are going to tackle that. Like, what a new component definition, for example, will look like when we support versioning. From the side of the application, Jambo also said something like, hey, we can also use even an annotation to hint, let's say, the application render on which versions to use. I think that part is, is more on the implementation side. I don't think it's just a matter of deciding which is better, but doesn't have that risk, if you wish, of designing it. The other part,
but you're right that Kubernetes doesn't support the same name, right? Or it does, but only if you use its alpha beta v1, and I still don't understand how that works in a kind of Semver world. So
even if you, so this is like, there are two things. Like, when you create a new element in Kubernetes, a new CRD, for example, somehow you put a version into it, because at the end of the day, you can, from the operator side, you can subscribe to specific versions and react to specific versions. But from the Kubernetes side, as you said, you cannot create two elements with the same name because they will. I mean, you will get the previous one will get overwritten by the new one.
Yeah. But is this
And I
maybe
think-
analogous to pods off deployment? So you say, you know, the pod is deployment name dash, you know, rollout dash GUID. I mean, could it not just be that the components internally? I know I said avoid calling it dash v2, but that's in my app YAML for my devs. But within our structure of holding those components, maybe you call it component name dash major dash dot dash minor dash patch, maybe.
That's a potential approach. Like, for example, like the component definition itself being named like my component dash v1, for example. And in your application, you can use my component or specify the given version. The only issue with that is that if we do that, finding the component will require different queries in Kubernetes. Like either we maintain better, let's say, a cache or something like that, or components, or you will need to query all instead of being able to retrieve one by name, which I think is what is being doing right now. But I think
if you mean if you don't specify version, because if you do specify version, you could just construct the name again from the version. But if you don't, no, well, yeah. I mean, I guess, yeah. If we support like at v3 and it needs to find that, okay, the latest v3 is v3.2.1, that gets difficult. But maybe you don't. Maybe it's explicit or latest. I don't know.
Yeah, the other approach, I also don't like it because I think it will create, at the end of the day, it will be a mess of maintaining it. Will be having kind of a component definition where you have, let's say, a template per version to simplify the approach, let's say, where you have like a list of these are all the versions of the component. But that will get messy quite rapidly because if you want to add a new version, you will need to patch the element. At the end of the day, it won't work. So I think we need to.
There's two sources of truth as well, isn't it? The source of truth should be the things in the cluster, but then you're keeping a second one, and there's just an easy way to get out of sync. But yeah, I understand. Yeah, you can't really.
Yeah, so
I guess you could query for all the things of that type, or you know, where annotation or where label matches. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that could be.
Maybe you could annotate not only the version, the actual version number, right? So v3.2.1, but maybe major version v3 and minor version v3.2, and then you can find all the ones that match it. You kind of drill in that way, right? It's a bit more efficient.
Yeah, that could be a good. That could be a good idea. Try to enforce like, hey, these labels, for example, annotation are mandatory in the sense of being able to find your component rapidly and maintaining the naming in the other way.
Well, I mean, you say mandatory. I would have thought the engine does it when you do veladef apply or vela add whatever. It kind of does all that for you on a cluster, right?
Yeah, but let's say that somehow if somebody creates the component definition without any tooling and injects it into the cluster, like what will be the compromise of which things are discoverable and well formed, if you wish? And
I mean, I don't know. I feel, maybe I'm a bit harsh, but I feel like if you've added it just like with kubectl apply, and you haven't put the annotations on, then when you try and use it, it doesn't find it. That kind of sounds like fair game to me. But yeah, I know it's an option to consider. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, but we need to document it because there could be other people that are just quite new to Kubernetes world and things like that find this like difficult to get their mind around. So, but I mean, let me take a couple of notes on this. So we can also add it then to the agenda discussion and the issues.
It's always one of the best, you know, it's a sign of a good issue where it seems really simple when you started and then it's like, oh man, this is really complicated.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good issue because, as you said, the definition is sounds simple. It has a lot of moving pieces, but at the end of the day, it's also giving a lot of potential and it's solving a real issue for a lot of people. So, I mean, I'm more than happy to work on this type of issue and it's also attracting a lot of comments, so that is also good always.
So just finally say I like the idea, but my specialism really is in writing the definitions. I don't really know much about the engine, so I can't even really contribute to this very much. But thanks to anybody who does.
Don't worry. This is always the benefit is always in how people want to use it, combined with how are we going to do it internally, and try to satisfy both worlds. So it's not a problem. Okay, so
thanks for your time.
If I could add something to the requirement, because I added a comment today. I appreciate this quite late for this discussion, but I was looking at making a decision between using multi-cluster and one Vela installation for my two cluster setup. I have a development and production environment. And as part of that decision, I was exploring how would I manage versioning. And versioning with a multi-cluster setup is you basically have one definition deployed in the hub cluster, which is applied to all the clusters that join. So I was seeing it from the angle of how do I manage the fact that I want develop to use a potentially the latest so I can test there and soak it a little bit more, and manage the fact that production might need to stay on an older version until I have confirmed that I'm happy with develop for a while. So the comment I put today and suggestions are how could I manage the promotion of the definition version between environments. I don't really want the end users to have to concern with the definition versions because they don't necessarily need to manage those for us. So I was looking for a central way to say, how can I, for my developed cluster, these are the versions I want to use. And for my production clusters, these are the versions I'm promoting that I want to use now. That's why I went in.
It's a really good point. Can I just quickly say it and then I'll shut up? That this is exactly the reason why I didn't use multi-clusters. When I first saw it, A, I didn't understand it and haven't tried it, and B, I just thought, ooh, that's going to be an issue. So I've got KubeVela in all three of our clusters: development, staging, and production. Completely separate.
That is the decision I'm having to make now, and I'm going in the direction of not using multi-cluster because it has a lot of little problems like this. I'm just laying out the pros and the cons right now.
Oh yeah, no, I'm with you because I think maybe this is a major reason why. But so if this was solved in the way you've suggested, that's really good. Yeah, I'm supportive of your suggestion.
That's interesting because we are, at least at Guidewire, we are planning to use multi-cluster. We have 40 plus clusters and managing them individually would not work awesome for us. So thanks for bringing that, Oana. I think we will also take a look at this.
Yeah, in the meantime, when I was doing my POC, I was actually working around with versioning. I came up with this sub-app model where I would define all of the, I basically created the configuration in the cluster. The first layer of the application would be a component of type application. I appreciate this will be hard to follow. So my first layer would be read the configuration of all the versions from the cluster I'm deploying into, then feed that into a component of type application, and then template the exact components, feed the versions in. So when I looked at, it's quite complicated. I don't like it. So when I looked at this proposal, it solves a lot of issues for us.
Okay. Yeah, we need to probably also consider this multi-cluster approach. I'm not that familiar with internal of it. I think there was a method by which you can actually, you only send to the dependent clusters the rendered application. So if that is still correct, in that sense, you can maintain the versions on your, let's say, control plane cluster, and you don't need to create versions on the downstream clusters. But I need to check that out. I have only used multi-cluster for quite small things, so I'm not sure about how that will work.
If Of course, there is always the option of not using multi-cluster and stepping away from it, in which case annotations would work nicely. We would probably not give it as an option for end users to put them on. And instead in the CI, we'll just inject the versions ourselves. So manage it that way. So if the CI detects you're in develop, then injects the certain versions we want for develop. If you're in production, based on that context, injects the production values, and we would manage it that way if we have to.
I must admit, and this speaks to your, I think, to your environment for deployments, I think, because yeah, I use the same. I have an app YAML, which is a template, which as I said, I use Azure DevOps pipelines. I have to, but yeah, so we use a replace, and we replace in things, depending on the environment. And one of those things could be the version of the traits. Yeah, absolutely. So I've gone down very much a similar route to what you're thinking about, I think. Yeah.
You could also use something like a mutating webhook to detect if you know the versions in your config, and so it is not at the pipeline level. So anything that gets deployed, you're able to detect and mutate it there.
Yeah, I also looked at that suggestion. It does sound like a lot more maintenance for us, but it's one of my 3 options.
Okay, definitely we need to take a look to this. So let's continue working on solving these particular issues on how to approach this versioning. I need to also to coordinate with Fog, because she has also started moving into that direction. So we will update the issue, and I will also add the new things that we have added today to the issue for continuity. Yeah, I don't know if there is anything else on this particular issue. We can move to the next one.
Go for it. Thanks for your time on that one, Daniel.
You're welcome. Okay, so next one is 7458, which is support ephemeral environments.
Yeah, it's me again, because.
So you can give a hint on this.
Yeah, so we work with ephemeral environments for develop. Our workflow is something like developers take a branch from a repo. From that branch, we create a unique application name with everything underneath. All the resources have that unique name. We use the branch name as a suffix. Right now we use Helm. We use the branch name as a suffix to create the unique names throughout templating. And we're looking for something similar with KubeVela. If we could add the ability to add a suffix to maybe to the application metadata, and instead of us having to inject things into the different names of the components, traits, workflows, if that plus the name could be joined together to help with the use case of ephemeral environments. I don't know if many people have this use case, or it's just us, but
we do similar. So we have PRs. So we do PR builds and deploys, so that devs, when they produce a PR, can get their software deployed and give it a test. And so we do that as similarly to you, templated it within the name or the URL, and we put the PR in there. But it occurs to me that one way you can do that, we've tackled something similar in our organization where we kind of wanted, I wish the core worked differently, but you can define it as a trait. So you could just say, trait suffix or something, give it the suffix name and get it to go through all the things that are on the deployment and add it, maybe. Just
I would need another layer of templating for the OIM in the application YAML, because the components need to be unique. So if imagine if I have a template that is in a repo that has the name, let's say application. If I take the first branch, it's going to create a component called application. If I take the next branch, it's going to say a component application is managed by some, or it's going to take over.
No,
as
but
well
if you have a trait that says, okay, give me the suffix that I want, and then the trait can patch that component. So can it not?
Yeah, but the
Yeah,
Vela
yeah.
needs to be unique as well. Not only what's inside, but within Vela, the component name, if I understand it correctly, needs to be
Okay, yeah,
unique.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, the
I know what you mean,
application
like the
name.
revision.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah,
So,
yeah,
The application name, the component.
one question about this, like, because I was thinking, like, when I use this type of approach, something like that, I have gravitated in the past to create namespaces per branch, per PR, things like that. Can you say a little bit like why you rather go like having just a namespace and multiple apps in that sense?
Because we will be relying on certain things. So for example, we rely on ingresses and other things like that. And ingresses are not cross namespace. So if we were to create them all in different namespaces, we'd have to do all sorts of bridges in between. So I think it complicates a lot of our setup in Kubernetes, is what I'm trying to say. If we take an application that would typically be in a certain namespace, and we want the developer to take basically their own copy of that application, and all of a sudden we're asking them to put them in a different namespace, the setup in that different namespace might not be what we expect it to be. So
Okay.
we're just trying to replicate what we have right now with Helm.
Okay. No, I just trying to understand like what was the different approaches. I think I even have a branch in the past that that was aiming to basically randomize like these create random suffixes for the components just for this particular use case. Like you can change the name easily, for example, from the application, but it's not that easy in terms of the component naming and things like that. I will try to find it because I think there was an issue also open for this, and maybe that also is related or is another potential solution for that.
What could help us, and I don't know if this is at all possible, I'm just occurring to me now, I can add it as a comment, is right now, how you construct the OAM application, you need to give it a name. If that was the part of the name, it's fine. And then if we could put in the properties, the suffix, and then the final shape of it and the final name will take effect later, if that makes sense. Maybe it's something that could work.
Yeah, another approach, I think, I need to find the issue, but I think another approach that I explored was like prefix the components by the application name directly. So instead of an exact fix, if you already are using different application names, just prefixing that on the name. I think there was another of the approaches. Let me try to find out where is that issue there.
But aren't the component and the traits all fixable as a patching thing? But the only thing that isn't is the context.name. Is that right? The actual application name.
The issue is that the patching happens, let's say, on the generated deployment, but the component name needs to be referenceable, let's say, from KubeVela to maintain.
Yeah, so the application's already been created before you get to evaluating it. Yeah, I see. Yep, got you.
So that will mean like supporting this type of thing in terms of when the KubeVela operator tries to look for the component, needs to be aware that maybe it's affixed by something.
Yeah.
I mean, we could solve it with a layer of templating on top of Vela templating, but it's not ideal.
Yeah, it's not desirable.
But as you say, if your Vela CLI supports, a suffix or prefix or something on the command line when you apply it, that's a way to do it, maybe.
Yeah, it could be even that could be a good approach to minimize like the impact of where we need to tweak the KubeVela. Like,
yeah,
do we need
sorry, I was saying apply is up, right? It's Vela up. I can't remember. It's ages since I wrote the pipeline. So Vela up minus prefix or yeah.
Yeah, that could be
minus
something
identifier
more
or
easily.
something. Yeah.
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 Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
I will write this down also on the issue or continue with it. And the latest feature for today initially is like 6391, which is support user-defined context in Vela Core.
Yeah, this is again me. I have been, again, due to us having to know a little bit more in applications for ephemeral environments, we would like to be able to do a user-defined context that is available during templating, which is already available in workflows. We just want it in applications, in OIM and throughout, so components, traits, everything.
Okay, so I think, well, there was a comment on this. Can you just, I think part of probably, I mean, is all in the sense that this type of issues that we need to revive. Could you please add an example, let's say, of what you imagine the application to be, like in YAML?
I did or maybe Fong has already. Can add.
Because Fong had added something like that will be like for the context and so on, but to try to get this like to reset, let's say the comments and say, I mean, try to be more clear on this is what I expected, so we can also try to see more easily probably.
Yeah, sure. I can repost basically one of the comments that Fong already suggested is context, but he was basically in between having to add the context at the workflow level. So it's only available during the templating for the workflow steps, which is not sufficient for what we need, or put it at a higher level, but then it means it's a change for the interface. So he wanted to discuss it with the rest of the community. So I will confirm in the comments now that it's basically the higher level we wanted at.
Okay, so okay, yeah, because I think it will is the, I think what, I mean, reading throughout this, what you are imagining is like having this context, let's say on the spec side instead of the workflow, like a spec level or something like that, or?
Yes, at the spec level, correct.
Okay, so you can just paste like, this is what I imagine. I think that will really help, like trying to see like, hey, we want this because of this and this and this, and how that will be used also. This is also interesting because there were some comments also on having the ability from Q to, let's say, extend what you can query from the context side. So I think that if we make that available directly on the Q side, that could also, yeah, extend a lot of use cases.
Yeah, I think a context is very powerful to be able to just inject things into the context and use them in templates without much of a interface change. That's the key for us. We don't want to change the interface too much for developers.
Okay, cool. Okay, so any further question, issue, anything you want to mention? Okay.
Oh, tiny weeny one. When you're copying those, the issue that you have for our agenda today,
yeah,
you know, the one that it's still saying 2 weeks as the community call, and it's kind of 3 or 4.
Oh yeah.
Not a big deal. Tiny typo, but thought I'd mention.
No. It's we need to we need to work on this also because the community agenda that is being posted, as you may notice, is this meeting was like 1 week after the 3 weeks. So we need to fix the bot that put also the community calls.
Yeah, I mean, we don't need to bake it in that hard, right? There's not that many of us, and
yeah,
we look at the thing. So yeah, we need to accept that it might get delayed from time to time. But yeah.
Well, it could happen, but at least let's have a method for everyone to be aware of when is the next one.
Yeah.
Because that failed pathway for some people. So okay.
We'll get
Okay,
there.
so thanks again everyone for joining in. And yeah, we'll continue working, and we can reach you can reach us through Slack, through any channel available, and we will try our best. Okay, so thanks again, and yeah, see you in the next one.
Thanks, Daniel. Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye all.
Bye.